Welcome to the Running Channel Podcast with me, Andy Baddeley.
And me, Rick Kelsey. No Sarah today. She is basking in the San Francisco sunshine. But do not worry, we're going to get sciencey. And we're going to be talking about how to run fast with a low heart rate.
Yes, it's a dangerous one to do science just with the two of us, but we're also going to be finding out how Rick got on with Rick's challenge now that he's finally bothered to test the nasal strips that we gave him.
What do you mean?
Because you're lazy?
Yeah, no, I'm not lazy at all. Unfair.
Okay.
I just had a lot to think about at Hackney, so didn't do it that day. But I've done it now, Andy. Fear not.
Excellent. Rick's overcome his natural prima donna status to actually help us out. We're also very excitingly going to be joined by Hannah England later on, who's a British silver medalist in the World Championships over 1,500 metres, now a commentator who's going to be out in Tokyo later this year at the World Championships. She's going to be helping us with our news section today, talking about roughly 100 days to go until the World Championships.
I tell you what, that's a lot to get into one episode. I'm not quite sure that we can do that alone, but we'll have to. And who needs her royal snarkiness anyway, when you've got good young Rick and Andy?
Let's get into it. Good young Rick and Andy. I don't think that's going to stick as a strapline.
What? Why say you're old and good young? It's better.
Yeah, not very snappy, I wouldn't say.
Okay.
So just format-wise, we're going to do a catch-up, aren't we? We're going to talk about how we've been doing this. Then we're going to dive in to find out how you can run fast with a low heart rate, hopefully, and what you could do to tackle that. Then a little bit of news. And then some questions.
I've got my shoes off.
You have?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, something I used to be known of when I used to work at the BBC. I used to walk around the office without shoes on. However, this is for another reason.
Yeah. Is that why you left the BBC?
They'd had enough of the smell.
Yes.
Yeah,
lovely.
yeah.
Actually, it's Tuesday morning at this, and there's no. We're quite a long way apart.
We are,
but I can't smell your feet. So,
although we have got quite excitingly a new camera angle. If you do watch this on YouTube, coming very soon, we're going to be able to see all three of us, kind of to prove that we are in the same room.
Yes, exactly, and we actually like each other enough to sit close to one another.
So I actually took your advice. I have done a lot of running recently. So did the half marathon. You and I did this challenge that we're going to talk about, which is basically a 500 meter elevation challenge.
Yes.
I made another couple of videos, few park runs in there. And in the space of a week, I'd realized basically that I'd run, normally what I was doing in about a month.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I've got some cracks in my feet, need to have a week off.
Cracks in your feet?
Yeah. Like the skin on the bottom of my feet is kind
probably
of
not
cracked.
from running, that's just like dry.
Yeah, but then it was generally, when you just get to a feeling, you think, I'm going to have a week off running.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to
You've done a lot. I think it's sensible, regardless of cracks in your feet or not. I don't think that's most people's first symptom of overtraining.
Don't you think?
No? Well,
cracks in your feet can be brutal. You know what I've been doing to heal the cracks? And this is working, by the way, if you ever get cracked feet.
Are you using your face serum on your feet?
No, that would cost a fortune. I'm using petroleum jelly, and then I'm wrapping my feet in cling film at night. Yeah. I'm putting socks over them to keep the moisture and... Yeah, you're looking at me like I'm absolutely...
No, I was more just thinking of poor Chantal. I was thinking of your lovely wife suffering with your cling film clad sweaty feet and socks in bed. That's an image.
I know, poor her. Tricky times, isn't it? At home. However, I did manage to test the nasal strips.
Oh, amazing. Well, I reckon cue up the jingle.
Rick's Challenge. Hey, it's good, isn't it?
Well, it's very early in the episode to have an extra jingle, but I quite like it. So you finally bothered to do this. You didn't bother wearing them for Hackney Half Marathon, which is what you were meant to wear them for.
Yeah.
You have now tested them. Do they make any difference?
They do make difference. So the nasal strips that I wore were kind of like they were the plaster style nasal strips that you basically just sit over the center of your nose.
Yes, they're like a stiff material that when they adhere to your nose, they just through the natural stiffness of the bend of them, they expand the airways. That's the idea, right?
Yeah, but I tried on the other ones as well, where you have the magnets which actually pull your airways apart. Yeah. These were nowhere near as efficient at letting more air into my nose.
So which ones were more efficient? Sorry, the magnet ones?
The magnet ones. I mean, I actually felt like a bull. I literally felt like I was going hunting after Spanish matadors.
Did you try running in both of them?
I tried in both of them, yeah.
So your verdict then?
My verdict is, if you want to make these things have a significant difference to how much you're breathing through your nose, the magnetic ones are much better. Whereas the tape ones, they look good, but they just looked a little bit like an eagle had emptied his bowels on my nose.
What kind of eagles do you know? Actually, funnily enough, I saw an eagle at the weekend, a golden eagle, second biggest bird of prey in the UK. Did you know that?
What's the biggest?
I don't know now. Maybe a condor. I might have made that up.
I think you might.
I think I've made that up.
Do we have condors?
Yeah.
I don't think we do.
Owen's frantically Googling. But I'm pretty sure that the little plaque that I read on Grace the golden eagle.
When you've been out running in Britain, have you seen a condor recently?
Who says we stray from the topic?
You're going to get a small amount of benefit from using the tape across your nose. It's going to get, but nothing like the magnetic ones, which basically just open things up a lot more. I tell you what it did make me do though. It made me much more conscious of how I'm breathing while doing any form of exercise.
Yeah.
So I was consciously trying to breathe more through my nose. But I actually don't think many runners do that much nose breathing anyway.
Maybe it's a good... so what I think is interesting when you think about nose or mouth breathing, I don't really notice my nose breathing until I've got a cold and can't breathe through my nose, and then running through is difficult. So it's not a conscious thing. So it's an and I think that's why I think that these things could be a benefit, even as a placebo. Well, and maybe that doesn't work. I was going to say as a placebo, they could be a subconscious benefit.
No, I think they could be. I think you're right.
I think this is going to make me faster. I remember Paula Radcliffe used to run in them in like the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Possibly through, I mean, don't hold me to this, but possibly through a sponsorship deal. I don't know. But now there's a resurgence in them. And they're like a badge of honor. The guys have been saying around Battersea Park, you see almost everybody wearing them.
I mean, and it would also be nice if you had some skin coloured ones that...
Yeah, we got you some deliberately bold ones.
Yeah, I would like a cherry blossom colour.
Yours were jet black.
Yes.
Jet black.
So not great, to be honest with you, when it comes to my skin tone.
Well, it's interesting. We've set off the Rick's challenge. We're working in very gently to the technological challenges to come, because this is the lowest technology that we could possibly find to help with Rick's challenge. And we're going to do this throughout the year, not every single week, but when we've got a cool piece of tech for Rick to test, then we're going to throw him in to Rick's challenge, see how he gets on with them so he can report back to you. And then we would like your suggestions as well. So email into podcast@therunningchannel.com if you've got any more cool devices that are a little bit more challenging for Rick to take on.
I think Sarah saw something when she was in California, which basically means you have to breathe in pure oxygen the whole way through your run.
Oh, she did send a picture to our WhatsApp group. Yeah, so it was like a mini respirator thing, I think, where you put a mask on and breathe pure oxygen.
I would like to live to see the end of the year. That would be great as well.
I don't think so. I was looking at the enhanced games the other day. I wasn't thinking of signing up for that, where you'll get $1 million if you can break a world record from taking all of the performance enhancing drugs under the sun.
Have you been
out?
Was
not what we're thinking.
Breaking any world records recently?
No, we did do this 500 meter elevation challenge, which I was very cross about. So that video is coming imminently.
When you say cross,
it might even be out by the time actually we're recording this now. And I think this podcast will go out just before this video. So it's a video where myself, Rick, Jess and Mark had to try to climb exactly 500 meters or as close as we could to 500 meters of elevation during a run without looking at our watch.
Just picture that. When was the last time anybody watching or listening to this did 500 meters in one run?
Well, I mean, I was about to give away some spoilers then, but I won't. But it's, I was very cross about this challenge, and I got to the end of it, looked at my watch to do the kind of reveal on the camera as to how high I'd got, and was very close to just taking my watch off and hurling it into the bushes.
I think we can tease that just one of the four of us managed to reach 500 meters.
I think we can tease that, yes.
Yeah.
And I was... Throughout this lovely challenge, I was just picturing your sort of smug pink face as I thought you were going to smash it in the hills of North London. It should be easy for you. You could do it in 5 minutes outside your front door. Just walk up that massive mountain.
I did. I walked up. I went to Alexandra Palace to do it. And the elevation is brutal. And if you don't take the paths up, you just run straight up the hill from the footpath down by the cricket pitch. And you just head all the way up to the top. I was trying to work out what that kind of elevation was, because obviously we weren't allowed to look at our watches, and you're kind of guessing, well, if that takes me 4 minutes to get to the top, and it's about 500 meters each time you go up, then what type of elevation is that?
Yeah.
And at one point I was on all fours, so I was working it out that potentially it was steeper than it actually was.
That doesn't surprise me that you've overestimated the hilliness of North London.
But it's a good video. I'm looking forward to it coming out.
So we're going to talk about how to run with a low heart rate, how to run fast with a low heart rate. That's the topic of today's podcast. Sort of related to this, I was out on my run yesterday, and I've realised, I don't think I've ever clocked this before, but I talk to myself on runs. Not necessarily out loud, although sometimes if I'm having a tough moment, I might give myself a little pep talk. Like just internal self-talk.
Well, is it like a to-do list?
No, as in if I'm just struggling a little bit, I give myself a little kick up the bum to kind of get going again. And I've realised my self-talk, internal or external, is quite sweary.
Really?
Yeah. I'm probably to the point where I can't repeat it here now. It's like beep, 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 beep,
really?
beep.
You're dropping all types of alphabetical bombs?
In my head, but then sometimes it will sneak out. I'm just in a field in the middle of nowhere and I'm absolutely flagging.
I can't imagine you saying that word.
No, not the word you're thinking of.
No?
So no, it just I was really surprised at myself. And then I wondered if there's a relation to inadvertently, because if there's some decent science, I think, between pain tolerance and swearing. So like they've done lots of tests where they put people's hands or feet in like ice cold water.
Oh yeah.
And then how long can people leave their hands in it versus like when they have to just be quiet, or they can say like they can talk but not say anything rude, versus being able to submerge your hand in icy water and then swear to your heart's content. And there's that reduces or increases your pain tolerance, so you can handle the pain for longer by swearing.
Because you're offloading the pain vocally.
Yes, I think so. And I think it has...
It must be that.
I think if you were... I'm guessing here, but mine is like...
It's an exit for the pain.
The words would have to be fairly taboo for you. So you'd have to feel a little bit like naughty for saying them.
Yeah, because when I get into very cold water, I do swear a lot, but I don't swear normally. I'm not a sweary person.
Well, there you go. So that would help you out, wouldn't it? I remember seeing something, I think Stephen Fry did it, and it was quite funny hearing him swear. He's got excellent vocabulary.
Oh, he has, yeah.
So he had some really interesting swear words, yeah. So anyway, I don't know whether I think that would raise my heart rate on a run though, if I was to swear in the middle of it. So let's talk about how you can keep it nice and low.
Yeah, I suppose the thing is though, it is hard, I think, to point out first, to get your heart rate really low when you're out if you're just starting off a major training block, because achieving that ability to run faster with a lower heart rate is naturally an indicator of improved fitness, isn't it?
Yeah, so the fitter you get, probably the faster you'll be able to run at similar heart rates. Or running at the pace that you've always run at, your heart rate will be slightly lower.
And that's essentially because your body's becoming more efficient, isn't it? And learning to cope with that change in speed.
Exactly. So it's your body's way of showing you that it has more aerobic capacity. So it has more ability to operate effectively aerobically. So you've got a few things at play, haven't you? You've got your VO2 max. So that's how much oxygen your body can kind of take in and use as a maximal performance. And then you've got running economy, which is your oxygen cost to run at a certain speed. But all of those things are related to heart rate, because you need the right heart rate to be able to pump that oxygen around your body and get it to your muscles and so on.
Should we break down aerobically and anaerobically as well? So one is with oxygen and one is without oxygen, isn't it? Aerobically
is with oxygen, anaerobically is without. So once you hit a certain threshold, your lactate threshold, then the majority of your work that you're doing is anaerobic. So you're not going to be able to sustain that for as long, and your energy source is slightly different. But if we start at the other end of the spectrum, so making sure we're running fully aerobically, so all exercise is all energy in your body is being produced by converting oxygen and fuel into energy for your muscles. That's at the lower end of your heart rate zones. So zones 1, 2, and 3, broadly speaking. And there's loads of focus on zone 2, isn't it? We've talked about it a lot on the podcast.
So much focus. I find it so hard to kind of run in zone 2. I always creep into zone 3.
Yeah.
Is that naturally, so 1 to 5 heart rate zones, so 1 being the lowest heart rate and 5 your maximum effort. So for example, for me, if I'm running a fast all out 5K, I'll be into zone 4 pretty quickly, and then right at the end I'll probably be in zone 5. Whereas if I'm just going on a long easy 7 or 8K, I'll probably be dancing around zone 3 for most of that. But zone 2 is seen as the holy grail, isn't it, of running? But I personally find it really hard to stay in it.
Yeah, perhaps there's a little bit too much chat and a bit too much pressure on having to be in zone 2.
Yeah.
And it's fairly arbitrary, and it also depends on loads of other factors as well. But one thing that's worth knowing, you mentioned like max efforts and then being in zone 4 quite quickly. It's worth knowing that your heart rate isn't an instantaneous response to exercise. So if you go up a steep hill, your heart rate will go up, but it doesn't go up the second you start running up that hill. By the top of the hill, your heart rate will have elevated. And the same when you start a 5K, if you start from rest and you go all out, your heart rate is going to be continuously going up and up for the first, it's really dependent on people, but 3, 4, 5 minutes before it settles at the level that it actually needs to be. It's not an instantaneous response.
I see what you mean. I see what you mean. But I think it's quite important though to have a rough idea of what your maximum heart rate is. A maximum heart rate is 220 minus your age. So in my case, 199.
Yeah, I was going to say you'd be very close to 200, surely. This guy's 20 forever.
And yours is 120.
Yeah, excellent. I'm 100 years old.
Yeah. So, but it's important because that kind of helps out work out what runs you're doing aerobically, anaerobically, and also what heart rate zone that you're running in.
Yeah, so let's talk about heart rate zones. But to finish that point, I suppose, is you need to be aware that your heart rate isn't responding instantly. So if you were thinking to yourself, I want to run my 5K or my easy run at 140 beats per minute.
Yeah.
And you're at like 120 after the first 2 minutes, you shouldn't speed up because then you'll likely overshoot. So after 2 minutes of exercise, your body's still kind of ramping up.
Yeah.
Your heart rate is still climbing. So if you look at your heart rate too early and think, I'm not going fast enough, I need to be running harder, then your heart rate's going to overshoot. Like think about turning like the hot tap on or the thermostat on from a heating perspective or in the shower. If you ramp it straight to what you need it to be, quite often initially you're standing in the shower and you either get too cold or too hot, and then the thermostat settles back onto the right temperature. So heart rate's the same.
So I'd love it if my boiler did that. It went at the weekend.
Oh no. Disaster in the Kelsey household.
500 quid later. Anyway, so
heart rate zones. So do you know what the heart rate reserve method is?
Isn't that just where you measure your useful heart rate beats? Yeah,
so that's exactly right, because the standard method that a lot of people use is just percentage of max heart rate. So if your max heart rate is...
I had to change my watch with this.
Yes, exactly that. So, and that'd be my recommendation when people are banging on about zone 2 and you're thinking, oh, well, actually, I'm in zone 4 the whole time, or zone 3. It's probably because you're just using the standard heart rate zones definitions and you haven't even adjusted them for your own physiology, let alone to this method. So we think this method's better. Lactate threshold is another method that's also pretty good if your watch can do a good estimate of your lactate threshold, or you've done it in a lab. But let's stick with this one because it's probably the simplest to do. You need to know your max heart rate. You need to know your resting heart rate. So imagine your max heart rate is 200 and your resting heart rate is 60.
Yeah.
You can't really use the first 60 beats of your heart rate because that's just you being alive, right?
Andy, that's quite low, 60, isn't it? That's very much an Olympic athlete.
Okay, yes. Mine would have been a lot lower. It's probably still in the 40s.
Yours
now.
is barely beating.
Yes, exactly. I would, whenever I went to get heart health screenings or just general GP stuff.
Breathe.
Then they would do blood pressure and heart rate, and then there'd be these anxious looks around the medics, the doctors.
Boom.
And then they said, "What do you do for a living?" And then I tell them, and they go, "Okay, that makes sense."
Boom.
Yeah. Yes. Well, it would be. So
I think mine's about 60. I think you're right. I think mine is probably about 60, maybe 65.
But you can't use that first bit because that's just you being alive. So like between 160 and 200 in this hypothetical example, that's 140 useful beats.
That's useful beats
you could use
if you're 21.
That's your heart rate reserve, effectively.
Heart rate reserve if you're 21 years old with 60 beats per minute. Useful
139 beats.
139.
So then what you would do to calculate those zones, and your watch will do it for you, and you can set it up in the app. So for example, I've set it up in Garmin Connect. You would then do a percentage, instead of a percentage of max heart rate, it does a percentage of that heart rate reserve. So say it's 50 to 60% of your heart rate reserve for zone 1. We're going to stop. I'm not going to do all the numbers here.
No.
But if you've got 140 beats available to you, then that's probably between 70 and 80. And then you add that onto your resting heart rate. So that's going to make your resting heart rate, your zone 1, 60 plus that kind of stuff.
You see, I think this is why a lot of people, and when they write in the comments as well, say
it's really hard.
It's really hard to run in zone 2 because I don't think they've used the heart rate reserve method.
Yeah, this will shift your heart rate zone slightly higher in terms of heart rates, which will mean it's easier to stay in zones 2.
Exactly. So it'd be slightly easier to stay in. But then the key from running in zone 2 is because it kind of enables your body to overall deliver more oxygen to the muscles because you're used to training at that low level, doesn't it? But that's the important thing about giving your base fitness a boost.
I think the most important thing, and this is where something called the MAF method comes in as well, which I will talk about briefly, is that the main thing when people bang on about zone 2 is that most people run too fast all the time. And so if you have some kind of focus of like keeping your heart rate low for a large part of your training, so sort of maybe 70-80% of your training, depending on how many times a week you're running, then giving yourself a number to work to, like zone 2 or low zone 3 heart rate, or this MAF number, and saying, I'm never going to run, or, you know, for most of my runs, I'm not going to run above that heart rate. It forces you to work aerobically. It doesn't put as much toll on your body in terms of like the recovery it's going to take and so on. And it gives you this kind of maximum adaptation to like that just general fitness.
But isn't there a fair bit of evidence as well that it helps your body rely on fat more as an energy source?
Yeah, the lower intensity, at running at much lower intensities is the point at which you can use fat for fuel more efficiently.
Stops you essentially crashing easily as well.
Yeah, and we talked about fueling on last week's episode, didn't we, with Sean? And I believe there was some comments about exactly that, as like there's a big focus on sugar. And so when we're talking about sugar and fueling and so on for running, that's generally with a focus on maximum performance. Like if you're going all out, it's pretty well documented in the scientific literature that max performance for stuff where you are operating at a high intensity level requires glycogen, glucose, sugar to do that. But that if you're not focused on max performance, then there's alternative ways of going about it in terms of like looking for fat adaptation and so on. And you can get that by operating in zone 2 because that is where you could be using fat.
There's lots of other things that you can do though in order to try and run with a low heart rate, such as mastering your breathing. So deep breathing can prevent your heart rate from spiking, optimizing your cadence, something that I enormously blew when I came back from injury because I was just basically trying to overstride slightly.
Yeah.
And then I consciously now probably understride a little bit just because I'm a bit more cautious with it.
Just going to put less impact through your
and then you incorporate your weight training in, resistance training builds in strength and endurance. And being a more consistent runner as well. So, regular structured training, mixing it up, different types of training. So bringing in intervals as well as long, easy runs into your sessions. So your body can get used to those different types of sessions, enable you to run more often in zone 2.
Yeah, all of those things that you've talked about there are things that impact running economy. So, running more and doing very specific types of interval workouts and so on will improve your VO2 max. Yeah. But you could have 2 runners with the same VO2 max. So they could have a really high elite level VO2 max, but one of them can run a marathon at 80 or 90% of their VO2 max. And one of them struggles to run at more than 50% of their VO2 max because of running economy. So it doesn't mean you're the same runner with the same abilities over the same distances.
I see what you mean.
And running economy comes from things like tendon ligament stiffness, which you can get, and muscular strength, which you get from strength and conditioning. It comes from efficiencies in cadence at the right different paces. And then that, you said, talking about changing cadence, you shouldn't try to make massive shifts. It's like tiny, tiny changes. And don't try and hit a particular number. People talk about 180. Yeah. But that's nonsense. That's an average of a bunch of elite runners that all had a range between 160 and 200, and you average that to 180. So it's not that that's the magic number. It's just that for a lot of people, a very small percentage increase in cadence will help them to be more kind of injury-proof and might improve their running economy, which means that the amount of oxygen that they need to run at a certain pace is reduced, which makes everything feel easier, or you can run at a faster pace for the same effort.
Cadence charts are fascinating. If you look at my ones pre-injury compared to post-injury, my cadence completely changed the first couple of years afterwards. But
that's not a surprise, is it?
That's caution.
Yeah, exactly.
It's caution. You just said then about when it comes to running, many of us run too fast.
Yeah.
This is the one stat that I think, if anyone takes anything from yours and my science session today,
I think we're doing okay. I'm sure people are going to be in the comments telling us we're not. But
that they should go with. Yeah. A productive training week should typically involve 70 to 80% of easy runs. So that's roughly zone 2.
This is around, the 80-20 rules.
Yeah, and around 20 to 30% of harder sessions. So in 3, 4, and 5.
Bear in mind that's more difficult the fewer runs that you do. So if you're running 4, 5, 6 times a week, it's easier to do 80% of that at easy runs because you include your warm ups and cool downs and stuff like that. If you're only running 2 or 3 times a week and one of those is an interval session, then it's going to be really hard for you to only do 20% of your weekly running at like high intensity. So just bear in mind there are some nuances to it, but it is a good rule to think about. It's not just smashing absolutely everything.
Yeah. So those factors that are beyond exercise intensity also could involve cross-training, couldn't they, as well? So bringing in some swimming into your running, different type of sports, some cycling into your running as well. These can all kind of help you keep a lower heart rate.
Yeah, and the low heart rate thing, let's just quickly, I guess, wrap up by talking about the MAF method, because it's a good summary, I think, for all the stuff we're talking about. So MAF is a method where you find your MAF, your maximum aerobic function. It was a guy called Dr. Phil Maffetone invented this method. And basically, you do 180 minus your age. And then there are some adjustments based on how well trained you are, whether you've had injuries and things like that adjust this number. But then that's your MAF number. And you basically shouldn't do any running above that heart rate. So if I'm 43, so I shouldn't do any running above 130. I'm not 40. I'm giving myself an extra year there. I'm nearly 43.
Aging yourself. Gosh.
But let's say that 137 then would be my MAF number. And then I would get to add a few heartbeats, I think, because of my nature previously as an athlete and how much training I've done. So my MAF number would be around 140.
Yeah.
So then I would basically be saying all of my runs under this method should be under 140. And my mind here is this is really arbitrary. I don't think it's the best way of like training. But what it does do is exactly what we said, which is forces people to have a number in mind that keeps them running easy enough to actually get all of the benefits that we've talked about. But where I think this falls flat, and I think even in the method itself, it would own up to this, is that you get to a certain point where you can't get fitter and better just running everything underneath that single heart rate. You need to add in intervals, you need to add in different training stimuli, and you need to train in different ways to focus on VO2 max and all of these other factors that will then overall as a package make you a better runner. And so it's a combination of lots of easy runs, some intervals for quality, some strength and conditioning that's going to improve your running economy, and then all of those things together will drive down your heart rate at the pace that you run at the moment.
And also think about your heart rate reserve method. I mean, that could be a game changer for many people.
Yeah, I feel like it's the single thing we've mentioned most on this podcast in the last few years is don't just accept the heart rate zones your watch gives you out of the box.
That you're told.
Yeah.
Well, I hope everybody found that useful. One thing some of you might take away from this is that one of us studied, what did you study at Cambridge?
Aeronautical engineering.
At Cambridge, and the other one did Shakespearean drama at Aberystwyth.
I think you did great, mate. Don't do yourself down.
You guess which one was which. No. Should we go meet Hannah England?
I think we should. Let's find out what she's got to say about all of the stuff coming up in the World Champs later this year.
And what a pleasure. We've got Hannah with us today. Hi, Hannah.
Hi, Rick. Hi, Andy. Thanks for having me.
This is dangerous because Rick's switched into full broadcaster mode.
Here we go. Here we go. Speak to our fellow broadcasters, because I have to sit with you,
Yeah, absolute amateur
for an hour every week.
Absolute amateur.
Great to have you with us, Hannah. Great to have you with us. Great to have you on board.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
And Hannah and I were on teams back in the day. Hannah is, of course, World Championship silver medalist in the 1500 metres, the best event that there is.
Yeah, I feel like a little bit of the odd boy in the corner of the room here who didn't run the 1500 metres professionally.
Well, if it helps, you guys are always taking the mickey out of me for not getting any medals. So me and you are in the same boat on that on that front.
Oh yeah, we both haven't won an Olympic medal. That's great.
Correct. Yes, we're on a level. So but Hannah, we want to talk to you about my old world, your current world as a kind of professional commentator in world athletics. So let's dive straight in.
So I suppose 100 days to go to the World Athletics Championships in Japan. It's slightly different though, isn't it? Going into this one, because there's just been so much more athletics that many of these athletes will have done, because it's not just the Diamond League. You got Michael Johnson's league as well. So it's all been kind of a very busy introduction to Japan.
It has, and we had a World Indoor Champs this year as well. That was delayed by years and years because of COVID. So it is a weird year, 2025. And Grand Slam tracks sort of come in as just this new thing with loads of money behind it, and it's hooked in some of the best talent. And they have to commit to so many meets. It's 4 meets, 2 races per meet. And that's them kind of done for the season. Once they focus on the trials to try and make the World Championships, those athletes won't have time to do much else. So I think it splits our stars a little bit between perhaps the traditional Diamond League circuit and this new Grand Slam track circuit. And I mean, it's good. It's good to have innovation in the sport and new events and new meets going on. I think it's pushed the Diamond League to kind of up their game a little bit. There's a bit more prize money flying around there, and they're boasting about their ticket sales and everything like that. I think competition kind of breeds success, so it's good.
Yeah, they're going to push each other to innovate maybe, but it's tough because the Grand Slam track started in, I want to say, April, and we've got particularly late championships this year, middle to end of September in Tokyo. So how do you think the athletes are going to deal with, I'd have hated it. I'd have hated having to be in shape in April and then all stay in shape all summer, whereas people are trying to peak for, one day of the year, but also trying to win $100,000 at 4 of these Grand Slam events.
And that's what I love about our sport, versus kind of football, where you want to be good every weekend, every match, you're trying to accumulate those points. For us, it's how good can you be on that one day in September? And no one's going to care who won the Grand Slam in April if they don't win the World Championships in September. And I think we'll see a few more athletes take like down periods and boost their training in the season. Whereas like for you and me, Badders, we might have only had one chance to do that in a traditional season, just sort of run away and top up for 3 weeks. I think we'll see these guys just shut it down periodically through the year and have a few more of those training zones. But we're also, I think this is like the 4th consecutive global championships in consecutive years because of the COVID disruptions, or 5th even. So I don't know, these athletes are going to be getting super tired by the time we get to September. So there's kind of like an element of mastering the season as well as each event.
That's mad, isn't it? 4th or 5th.
Yeah, because usually there'd be a down year for European or Commonwealth athletes because there would be Olympics, then Worlds, then a year off, then Worlds again, then Olympics. It's a strange one. What have been your highlights so far, and who are you looking forward to seeing for the rest of the season?
I think it's been great to see sort of all the normal stars come out okay. I think we haven't seen that many shocks yet. I think the men's 100 is one for me. I think it's going to be super competitive this year. I think everyone was kind of going, what are we going to do after Usain Bolt? We've got to find the next star. And instead, we've ended up with this real level playing field in the men's 100. Like it was only won by 2,000ths by Noah Lyles in Paris. And so all those guys behind you, they were that close to an Olympic title. And they're all still there and thereabouts. And it's really global in the men's 100 with like Akani Simbini as the world lead from South Africa. And then we've got Jeremiah Azu from Britain, who won the European and the World Indoors. So we've got some skin in the game there in the men's 100. So that's one for me. But when you talk about carrying sharpness through the season, like that's mad. And the 100 meters, like how do you keep doing that kind of really honed skill for months and months on end?
What about the 1500 meters then? Got to talk about it as I'm in the room with you two. Is that rivalry between Kerr and Ingebrigtsen going to continue, do you think, for the men's 1500 meters in Tokyo?
The best event ever. Just the 1500 in general, not the men's, the women's.
Just full stop. Well. Just full stop.
Yeah.
Just full stop, just do away with everything else. Ingebrigtsen, so he's been quite public in saying he's been injured, that he's had an Achilles issue since the indoor season. He was dominant indoors. So that kind of makes you think.
That's back in March, right?
Yeah. So he won 15 and the 3K in March. Great races, tactical Europeans and Worlds. And then he said he's injured. And you kind of think, why are you telling everyone? Like, why are you giving the likes of Josh Kerr hope here that there's going to be,
because he still thinks he can beat him.
Yeah. No, he does, and I love the rivalry. I don't think we have enough of that in athletics, and it's very pure. They're not acting up to the cameras. They genuinely believe they're going to win, and and to say Britain have got the last 2 world champions. Jake Whiteman and Josh Kerr, like I think, getting beaten by 2 Scotsmen in the world champs, he won't want that to happen again, Ingebrigtsen. But he was only 4th in Paris as well. It's a really competitive event, and I definitely think that's going to play out this summer as well.
Did Andy have any of that arrogance, Hannah?
Ooh, I don't know. Confidence. I mean, yeah.
What happened to that?
Yeah, I'm not arrogant. I'm just great.
Yeah, it was more the Ingebrigtsen kind of arrogance than I am just wonderful. Everyone should
steady on. But the lovely thing about that rivalry is, or the interesting thing is that then last year everyone's so focused on them that then Cole Hocker came through and won the 1500. And actually, when 2 big stars are so focused on one another in an event that is so inherently tactical and you've got to be in the right spot at the right time, that's why it's the best event. I'm biased, but like you just don't know what's going to happen. There's probably are like 3 or 4 other guys who are in with a chance if it goes their way as well.
Yeah, and the women's event, Hannah?
Well, the women's event, I was going to say just quickly on the men's 1500 that Badders and I, we watched that together in Paris. And it was just,
we were sat in the stands together.
We were sat with about 80 meters to go, and no.
I mustn't have got an invite to that night.
No, you did not.
I didn't even have a ticket. I had an accreditation that could get me anywhere, but I didn't have a seat. So I was just hovering around trying to find friends and trying to sit anywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think no one could call it that day, and I think that will be the same this season. But the women's 1500, like Faith Kipyegon, she's just head and shoulders above everybody else. Like 3 Olympic titles back to back. So fast, world record holder in the mile and the 15. And then we've got this bonkers sub-4 challenge going on.
Sub-4 minute mile. Do you think she can get anywhere close, Hannah?
If anyone can, she can. But and like, I'm just like, if she does, like, what's the shoe tech that's gone into that? What's the pacing? Like the way they're going to pace it, surely that's going to change pacing forever if she manages it. Like, I don't think, I don't want to be a naysayer, but to improve by 7 seconds is a bit mad.
Yeah, and for context, I was doing the maths on this, that like everyone thought that a sub-2-hour marathon for
doesn't he?
I do love maths.
Yeah. Aeronautical engineering, that's his degree.
What, they put this in my computer?
Yeah.
Brilliant. The computer says no.
All right, I've just one question on that before you go. You just said the shoe tech there.
Yeah.
Are there limits?
Well, this
not
one
in
for
this.
this sub-4 minute mile, there won't be, no, because it's it's like Kipchoge's Vienna attempt where he was trying to run sub-2 for the first time, where that like it was, throw the rule book out. It doesn't count as a world record, but can we see the limits of human performance?
But in the World Athletics Championships, there are limits.
Yes, there are. Yeah, I believe it's 20 millimeters now for the height.
Correct.
For spikes and stuff. But yeah, it's twice, percentage-wise, it's twice the improvement required for Faith Kipyegon to break 4 than it was for Kipchoge to break 2 hours.
Right.
So like that puts into perspective that that was something that people didn't think might happen, but he did do it. Whereas she's got to make twice the leap forward, 7 seconds over 1500 meters.
Well, I did some maths too because I'm a bit of a geek, and I was saying it's like a 10 dead guy going 9.7 in the 100. And that's not as crazy. If someone had run 10 seconds, last season, and then they come out and run 9.7, you kind of say,
but do you not think if someone said to you, well, Usain Bolt's run 9.58, and I'm going to go and run 9.28.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, okay.
All right, before he starts designing aeroplane engines, I'm going to cut you both off. But we'll see you in Japan, if not before.
Yes, definitely. I think it should be super fun out there. And for Tokyo to have a full stadium, so many of the athletes have said to do the Olympics there, they love the arena, they love the hosts, but there weren't any crowds. So they're going to get the crowds this time. And I think that's just going to be great for everyone.
Hannah, I'm going to do my official broadcaster send-off to you. Hannah England, 1,500 metre runner for Great Britain and commentator. Thank you very much. Well, here we go. Brianna Doyle from London. Hi, Brianna. And she says, hello, Sarah, Andy and Rick.
That's the right order, isn't it?
Is it? I'm a relatively newly returned runner. I ran a ton in my 20s, including the London Marathon. Spent 30s dealing with various knee injuries and having an unreasonable number of children. Hang on, there's some similarities going on here. And in my early 40s, I'm back and absolutely loving it.
You missed out the bit where she says 3. Andy, I agree, is the best number of children.
That's if you had 3, though.
Yeah. Well, I have. So.
I've signed up for a 5k race in Battersea Park in mid-June and want to ask about warming up. The run is scheduled for early evening. Oh, they are tricky.
Yeah.
I have really come to appreciate the importance of warming up and cooling down properly.
Warming down. Okay. Yeah. My question is, how is it best to do this prior to a race when presumably there will be a period of time when you're waiting for the race to begin? Thank you so much for your entertaining and informative weekly podcast. I'm relatively new at listening to this and making my way through the back catalogue as I wait eagerly each week for the newest drop. I have yet to get through an episode without enjoying it. Well, that's very nice to hear. I actually met someone at the running show this year who just started out and was about a year behind. And wasn't catching up with it. They were going to work their way through in order. They said I look younger, to which I think you said he's had a lot of work done since then. That would be a standard response from me. Just getting your gags in for you, mate. Just set me up. Well, that's very nice anyway. That's very nice. This is a really good question. I think evening races are tricky for a lot of people. Funnily enough, that was what I spent my career doing. All of the big athletics meets and the major championships, they have morning sessions, but the finals and the big races are in the evenings. The Diamond Leagues, all of that stuff is in the evening, whereas most mass participation races are in the morning. So it is a different kettle of fish. I suppose it's the same in many sports because of essentially people coming to watch it, fans. If you think about... Sunday League football's in the morning, exactly, right? So Sunday League football's in the morning, but a Premier League game, European games, they're played at 9 o'clock at night. Yeah. I love on the continent. So it's
it's the spectacle of going after work for most people to watch it. But for us, mere amateurs, not you, we are used to getting up, doing the job, and then having the afternoon to enjoy it.
So there's a mental element of preparing for an evening race.
There is.
And then there's Brianna's question about how do you warm up for it effectively when, and this is a challenge, like the optimum thing is do what you do in a training workout, isn't it? You do whatever warm up you would normally do. And then you're in complete control of when you start your first hard effort, or like a park run on a Saturday. If you're going to run that hard as a time trial for yourself, then same thing. You know it's going to start at 9 o'clock. So, and you don't have to wait in a warm up pen or a holding pen or like your start wave or corral. You've got complete control over it. And I've talked about that for my marathon later this year. That's something that I worry about, is I don't want to have to stand in a big like wave with loads of people for an hour and get cold and
So you're going to join the pros?
Well, I need to be faster if I'm going to join the pros. But that's why I was talking about maybe Valencia as a marathon, wasn't I? Because it would. I know what it looks like. So from Brianna's perspective, I would say still do your normal warm up. And this is relevant to any distance really, not just 5K, where you're going to have to stand in a starting wave. Do control what you can control. So find out when you're going to have to be in your corral or in your kind of area where you're not going to be able to warm up anymore. Do your normal stuff. I would say potentially if it's a long time in advance, then be kind of slightly more circumspect about what you're going to do. So if it's going to be like a full hour before you start, then you maybe don't want to knock out 5 or 6K in the warm up and then be sort of tired and cooling down. But I would still treat it as if you're going to be able to go more or less straight into the race. So I do my warm up, 10-minute jog, whatever it might be. I'd go through my drills and my strides, control what I can. Then I would get into that start corral area and I would just try to keep moving. Yeah. What the worst thing you could possibly do is just stand completely still, lock out your legs and your lower back. Like my most painful thing to do is to stand up all day. Not running. It's like standing at a meeting or standing at a wedding or something.
Running a shop during the marathon.
That would be, yes, exactly. Doing the London Marathon.
Do you know what? Fair play to you. If you run a shop all day, amazing.
Yeah.
You mean that it's proper hard work.
Yeah.
I would say actually just moving on the spot, even in the short or small amount of space that you have.
Yeah, exactly.
So bouncing up and down, doing some squats, doing some calf raises, leaning on the person next to you, even if you don't know them, maybe ask first.
Yeah. Yes, please do. Respect people's personal space.
Well, you can't really do that really, can you, in a pen? That's pretty hard.
Yeah.
That's pretty hard. So try all those things and try to keep moving as much as you can, because sometimes you can be in there for absolutely blooming ages.
And if you are feeling a bit stiff and you do finally get your chance to cross the start line, you might just have to take the hit in that first 30 seconds to a minute of like easing yourself into it and not just going from 0 to 100 off that start line once you're freed up.
That would be good, because then you can run your first kilometre as your slowest kilometre.
Exactly, and you can sort of build into it.
I was so tempted though the other week, you know, when there's no kilometre signs and there's just mile signs, to just switch my whole thesis on running to miles instead of kilometres.
I can't go back to miles because I still remember what I used to run competitively, and it depresses me when I'm so much slower than I used to be. So I stick to kilometres now because it tricks your brain. I've got two different careers.
It keeps it safe.
Exactly.
Have you got a quick favour to ask?
I have. We love the Running Channel listeners. We've had loads of amazing messages to podcast@therunningchannel.com. So please keep firing them in if you've got requests for Rick to try out in Rick's challenge. If you'd like to hear us talk about any particular topics or anything like that. But then I would also like you to pop the link to the Running Channel podcast into any WhatsApp chats, Facebook groups, communities that you know that might benefit from listening to our nonsense, having some fun with us and joining our amazing community. We need to come up with a name, don't we, for what like fans of the Running Channel podcast are called. But before we do that, please just help us to make that number bigger by recommending us and give us a rating on the store wherever you listen. So Spotify or whatever that might be.
And we'll see you next time when, fortunately, or maybe fortunately, because I did notice one person just tuned in last week and went, oh no, Sarah, not listening then.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Savage.
Brutal, isn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's tough.
Well, Miss Snoggy Pants will be back with us next week.